So this is the final sculpting chapter. I hope you are having fun so far, and the last thing we need to do is to deal with the tower here. So let's select the tower, and we'll need to add some modifiers here as well, because I want to smooth it out a little bit, make it more rounded. And the best way to approach this is to add subdivision modifier, but we'll need some support loops for that as well, and let's create them procedurally using the bevel modifier, so we don't need to go ahead and add them manually. So let's go into the modifiers tab and let's add the bevel modifier here, and let's reduce the amount to something like this, and let's add one more segment, and that should create enough support loops. And of course we'll need to switch the limit method to angle, so we get rid of the support loops here. And let's go into the geometry and let's switch outer miter to arc, and I think this should produce okay mesh for us, and this should be enough. So let's collapse the bevel modifier here and let's add a subdivision modifier. We can do that using shortcut Ctrl 2, or we can go Ctrl 3 even for 3 levels of subdivision. That will make the result a little bit more smooth. So this is what I had in mind, and now we can just hover over these modifiers and let's apply the bevel first. So Ctrl A hovering over that, and Ctrl A over the subdivision modifier as well. And now let's go to the sculpting workspace. Let's press slash on our numpad to go into the local view and focus on our tower. And as you maybe already know, we need to remesh this. So go into the remesh and let's set this to 0.01. And let's click remesh. Okay, I will check this out and looks good so far. And we can go ahead and sculpt the tower now. The first thing I want to do here is to smooth it out a little bit. So let me switch to a smooth brush, and I will press F to make the brush much larger here, and just do a few brush strokes here and there to smooth this out a little bit. Now just to get rid of these edges there. Be careful not to go too much on the smooth, because it could destroy your edges around this ring. So be careful around there. It's better to set the strength really low and do multiple smooth strokes. Okay, something like this. Let me check the orientation. Okay, this looks all right. Okay, so after the smoothing, we can go ahead and just switch to the scrape brush, reduce the size, and start defining some of these chamfered edges like this around our ring. And don't worry about the precision here. The goal here is not to be precise. On the contrary, we want like that variation around these chamfers. And to make these cavities a little bit sharper, you can always switch to a crease brush, reduce the size, and with very light touch, make it a little bit sharper there. Okay, let me switch back to the scrape tool, And I want to finish with the top ring as well. Okay, just like that. And now let's increase the size of the brush by pressing F. And additionally, let's bring the strength down, maybe something like this. And let's scrape away on this rounded surface, so we create a little bit of those flat surfaces here and there. But let's keep it really subtle. Just to give it some texture and create like these flat parts here and there. Okay, like that. And now we can reduce the brush size. Let's go back to the crease brush and let's create some of these slashes here and there. So let's press F, go really small on the brush. And let's add some damage here and there. Okay. And again, we don't want to go too crazy on those. Just here and there. If you want to make it a little bit more interesting somewhere, you can go a little bit deeper with the crease and then switch to the scrape, make it larger and flatten it like this to create this well defined edge. Now we can zoom in a little bit, and the last thing I want to do is to choose clay strips here, press F to make the brush smaller, and then chip away a little bit on those rings. So by holding Control, we can add some additional damage like this. Then you can take the scrape brush again and clean it up a little bit. Okay, I think this looks fine, so let's press slash on the numpad to go out of the local view. And now I can see I've added too much detail on this side, which won't be visible there. So let me hold Control Tab, switch to the object mode, and now tab in, and I will select all, press R, Z, and rotate it just like this in the edit mode. So we have a little bit more of the detail here. And this is something I had more in mind. And let's now handle the entrance here. And we already joined the object, but there's still mirror modifier in place. So let's hit Ctrl A to apply that. And now we want to remesh. And here I want to stop for a little bit and talk about how remesh can help you creating really complex shapes. Because as you remember, if I go into the edit mode right now, you can see that this is made out of two objects right here. If I hover and press L to select linked, this is one object and here is the other one. They're just joined to make one object, but it's not one single mesh, that would be manifold. And if we now go into the sculpting mode, so let me hold Ctrl Tab again and switch to sculpt mode, we can hit remesh. Let's set this to 0.01 and let's hit remesh. And what happened, if I now go back to the edit mode, you can see that this is now one single mesh. If I hover and press L, it all gets selected. This is one manifold mesh. Blender takes all of the meshes in that one single object and merges them together into one. So this is very useful, and you can imagine how easy it is to create complex shapes. You can just stack up multiple objects on one another, create something that's as close to your sculpt as you want to be, and then you will remesh and use these sculpting brushes to refine all the details, you know, give it some texture and stuff like that. So that's very useful workflow. And now let's switch to the sculpt mode and let's deal with this part as well. And this will be fairly similar. I want to scrape these edges, you know, give it some stonework treatment like before. So let's go ahead and do that right now. I will just increase the strength of the brush quite a lot, and let's scrape away. Okay, so that's for the scraping, and now let's select the smooth brush. I'll make it a little bit smaller and deal with these cavities right here to make them a little bit more smooth. and let's do some refinements here and there. And now it's time to give it some details, give it some texture treatment. And as I said before, there are multiple ways how to customize your brushes. If I go here into the tool settings, you can see we have some brush selected. Right now I have the draw brush active, but if you click here, you can see a selection for brushes appears, but there's only one brush, and that's the default draw brush. But you can of course modify it, then you will change the settings on your default brush. If you do that and you want to go back to your original brush, you can always expand this little icon here and click select brush. But if you really want to go wild on that brush, you can just click here to duplicate it just as you would in the materials and create a new brush, give it the name, and you have the new brush right here. And not only that, you can choose what sculpt tool actually the brush uses. So even if you create it as a draw brush, you can switch its function, the underlying algorithm of the brush right here. You can choose the modes where the brush is enabled, and you can even upload your custom icon that will appear here. So there's a lot you can modify it here. And after you created your brush, you can save it in your file. And then if you have another Blender file open, you can just go ahead and append that brush, same as you would another object or material or anything. It exists in Blender's data layer. It's there. You can append it just as any other object and use it in your new file. And going in depth on all of these settings on these brushes is really out of the scope for this whole course. Again, as I said before, this is just to show you how sculpting works and how you can use it to have a little bit more fun with these dioramas, how to create a little bit different style, how to stylize your work so it looks sculpted and painted, and to really give you overview how these brushes work and that there is an option to create your own. But not only you can create your own brushes, you can of course import brushes from other artists as well. And that's what we are going to do right here. There's very popular brush set out there from artist who goes by the name Orb. You can find the link in the description and check him out, and you can find the link for the brushes download as well. So go ahead, download them. I already did that, and we can now just go ahead, append those brushes, and I will show you how they can work for you. So after you downloaded and extracted the directory with the brushes, just go ahead, click File, Append, locate your brushes. I have them right here, and just double click or brushes blend. It will open as a folder structure. And now just go into the brush folder, and all of these orb underscore brushes are the ones we are interested in. So select the first one, hold shift, click here to select all of them, and just click append. Now I will save the file. And now back on my tablet, we can just click, and you can see a lot of brushes appeared, and they have their custom images. So you can go ahead and browse through them, what brushes are available there. And some of these are draw brush types, but if you switch to clay strips, you can see there is another set of brushes, and there's one on the clay brush as well. So yeah, you can just go ahead and explore them, what they do. I will show you a few of them and how they can be used. First, let's click here and choose this rock brush right there. That's the one that's set to add a direction so it doesn't subtract from your model. And let's take a while and explore how it's set up. And one of the notable things here is that the brush has a texture to it. So if you click here, you can see all the multiple textures that belong to these other orb brushes. And this one uses this texture to create the detail. So that's the first main difference. Then we can see that in the stroke, the method is modified and it's set to anchored. That means that it's not used as a painting brush, more like you will drag and drop these texture patterns all over your model. And then there's some custom fall off. You can see that the profile is changed. So towards the edges, it will fade away a little bit. So let's just now go ahead and try what this brush does. And you can increase the strength a little bit. And let's start somewhere here, and let's just click here and drag in the middle, and you can see how this creates that texture. And yeah, the strength is too large, so if you would release this, you would see how the brush got applied here. So I will go back. Unfortunately, sometimes the back works in mysterious ways, and when I went back it switched my brush too, so I will need to go ahead and choose it once more, and it's set to 0.16. so let's try it that way, and let's just click and drag here, and that's more like it. I think this creates a nice texture, and you have nice rock texture in place. So let's do something like that here as well. And let's do the same on the other side. So as you can see, this is just one of the ways how you can use the sculpt brushes. You just take the brush algorithm that's available, and you can apply texture to a different stroke method, play with the settings, and create a really unique set of tools to quickly modify your models and give them detail you need. I think this looks fine so far, so let's not overdo it and let's move on. And I want to create some slashes here, and there are some good brushes here as well for that. So let's click here and let's find this orb line large, and now you can just click and drag, same as before, and release to create a slash right there. But I don't like the position there, so let me try somewhere here maybe. Yeah, I think this is more like it. So yeah, create few of these slashes here and there, but again, be careful about that, so it's not too much. Okay, let's save this, and now I want to hold Ctrl Tab, switch to object mode, select the tower again, and we'll give the tower some additional detail as well. So let's hold Ctrl Tab and let's switch to sculpt mode, and same as before, I want to switch to this rock pattern and give some texture treatment to the tower as well. So let's click and drag to give it some rock or stone pattern. But remember, we want to maintain some level of stylization here, and if you go too much in detail with textures, it won't play nicely with the rest of the sculpts we did. We don't want too much of that material realism there, so you can always just click the smooth brush, increase the size, you know, and then manually smooth out some parts. And that way you can really have the texture only on places you really want it. And now I want to show you probably my favorite part of this brush set. Let's go to the clay strips, let's select the brushes, and we'll choose this rubble. And now this is set in a similar way, so you can just click and drag to place this kind of texture on your model and sculpt like this. And I really just love the result, where you can take basically just a black and white texture with the height information and create detail like this in a matter of seconds. I just love it. So let me go back a little bit, and I want to create some really subtle rock details right here. Something like this maybe. And maybe we can switch to another one. Let's try a different one. Yeah, something like this. And again, we don't want to overdo that. Maybe we can place few of those here and there, just to give it some interesting detail. Okay, I think this is more than enough. Let's do one here on the other side as well. Okay, I think I like this. So yeah, the one last thing we have here, let's not forget about the woodering here. There's nothing new I want to show you here. We just need to do that. So first of all, let's give it bevel modifier as well. So I'll switch to the modifiers, add bevel modifier. Let's increase the number of segments to 2. Let's reduce the amount and switch method to angle. Like this, maybe even reduce the amount quite a lot. Okay, now let's hit Control, let's say 3. And I can see there is a little bit of an issue here. So we probably need to increase this angle to something like 35. Okay. And now just apply those modifiers. So Control A, hovering over those. Now shade is smooth. And let's hold Control Tab and switch to Sculpt mode. And in the Sculpt mode, we'll hit Remesh. And let's enter 0.0, let's say 0.5. And let's click Remesh. Okay, now select the scrape brush. And we'll do those edges here as well. Okay, and now I'll switch to the draw brush and just go ahead and create some kind of wood texture, same as with the logs before, maybe a little bit larger. Okay, something like this, and I'll just go around and draw Okay, now let's select the crease. I want to make this effect a little bit stronger. Okay, and now finally switch back to scrape, and you probably know what's gonna happen. I want to flatten this a little bit to create a little bit sharper texture there. Okay, so that's for the wooden ring, and I think that's for the sculpting in this episode. We basically did all of the elements we need. We did all the rocks, shingles, wooden logs. We used all of the knowledge on the tree there to do a little bit more custom sculpt. And then on the tower, we just apply some of these techniques and introduced a set of custom brushes with textures to show you how easy you can use textures to apply detail to your sculpts. And yeah, all the objects are sculpted now. I really hope you enjoyed the sculpting part, that you had a lot of fun with this kind of a new approach that's a lot different from the traditional modeling that we did up until now. And yeah, now all that's ahead of us is just to finish the composition a little bit, move things around, you know, finish with some grass and tree leaves and stuff like that, and give this some beautiful materials and lighting. So I'm really looking forward to that. So if you enjoyed this sculpting, you know, you can always go ahead and try sculpt more details or remake some of the stuff we did up until now. And when you're ready, I'll meet you in the next chapter.